Anhad, let us see how this goes. How the Grinch stole Christmas. Ready? Okay, here he goes. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch who lived just north of Whoville did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on right. It could be perhaps that his shoes were too tight. But I think most likely reason of all was maybe that his heart was 2 sizes too small. Yeah. But whatever reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on a Christmas Eve hating the Who's, staring down from his cave with a sour, Grinchy frown at the warm lighted windows below in their town, for he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming, I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, he knew, Merry, Merry Christmas. All the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early. They'd rush for their toys, and then, oh the noise, noise. That's the one thing he hated, the noise. See the Rosada kid, they always playing. Then the Who's, young and old, would sit down to feast. They'd feast, and they'd feast. They'd feast on Who pudding and the rare Who roast beast, which wasn't something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Who's would start singing. They'd sing and they'd sing and they'd sing. The more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for the 53 years, for the 53 years I put up with it now, I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? Then he got an idea, an awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do, the Grinch laughed in his throat. He made a quick Santa Claus hat and coat. He chuckled and chuckled. What a great Grinchy trick. With this coat and this hat, I look just like St. Nick. All I need is a reindeer. The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No, the Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max and took some red thread, and he tied a big horn on top of his head. And then he loaded some bags, some old empty sacks, on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. And the Grinch said, giddy up! And the sleigh started down toward the home where the Who's lay a snooze in their town. All the windows were dark, quiet snow filled the air. All the Who's were all dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square, this is stop number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed, and he climbed to the roof, empty bag in his fist. And he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two, then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who's stockings all hung in a row. These stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go. Oh no, he's gonna steal everything. And then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant. Around the whole room he took every present, pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn, and plums. And he stuffed them in bags. And the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimbley. Oh boy. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out the icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took their last can of Who hash. And then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. And now, grinned the Grinch, I will stuff up the tree. And the Grinch grabbed the tree. He started to shove. And when he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove, he turned around fast and he saw a small Who, little Cindy Lou Who was not more than 2. Well, to see, you're like 1. The Grinch had been caught up by this tiny Who daughter who'd got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, Santa Claus, why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why? She's wondering why, darling. But you know the old Grinch was so smart and so slick, he thought up a lie and he thought it up quick. Why, my sweet little tot, fake Santa Claus lied. There's a light on this tree that won't light on one side, so I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, then I'll bring it back here. And his fib fooled the child, and he patted her head and he got her a drink, and he sent her to bed. When Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to this chimney and stuffed the tree up. The last thing he took was a log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney, himself the old liar. On their walls was left nothing but hooks and some wire. The one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. And then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses. It was 15:15 dawn, all the Who's still at bed, all the Who's still a snooze, when he packed up his sled, packed it up with their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags, and the tinsel, the trimmings, the trappings. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip top to dump it. Poop hoo to the Who's he was grinchiously humming. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. The mouse will hang open a minute or two, then the Who's down in Whoville will cry, hoo hoo. What a noise, grinned the Grinch, that I simply must hear. So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear, and he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. But it wasn't sad, or the sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry, very. He stared down in Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes and he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somewhere or the other, it just came just the same. And the Grinch put his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be? It came without ribbons, it came without tags, it came without packages, boxes, or bags. Then he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't thought before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas perhaps means a little bit more. So he's thinking about it there. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville they say, that's the Grinch's small heart. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't quite feel so tight, he whizzed with his load to the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food for the feast. And he, oh boy, this is the big ending, Anhad. You ready for it? He himself carved the roast beast. There you go. Beautiful. Great story. Beautiful. How the Grinch Stole Christmas.